Welcome to my channel. Try to hear the latest story.
Don't come to Christmas this year. It'll be weird, my mom said. My brother added, yeah, you'd ruin the family picture. So I cut them off, married without telling them, and when the photos blew up online, their meltdown exposed exactly who they really were to everyone. Hey, Reddit, my family spent years choosing my brother over me. So I made my own life, married the right woman, and cut the noise. They didn't take that well. Before the real chaos started, here's the beginning. My name was Romeo Luciano, 29 at the time, a marine surveyor working out of Tacoma. I spent my mornings climbing around ships and deciding whether they were safe enough to leave the harbor. My family never fully understood it. My mother Daniela acted like it was a quirky phase. My father Coulter tried to pretend he got it, and my older brother Nikolai, married to Lucille, just called it boat stuff. The only one who treated it seriously was my uncle Giovanni, my dad's older brother. Fog had settled thick over the port of Tacoma when I stepped onto a cargo vessel that morning. A deckhand followed close behind me, hoping I'd skip half the inspection. You really gotta check all that? He asked. I crouched beside a hull bracket and tapped the metal. The cold bit through my gloves. My knee twinged when I shifted my weight, an old ache I pretended didn't exist. I adjusted anyway. Pain didn't get a vote. Accuracy did. Not everything, I said. Just the parts that stop you from sinking. If that's a problem, try breathing underwater. He didn't push again. I moved through the ship with the same steady pattern I'd used for years. Photos, notes, measurements, short conversations when needed. Some of the crew watched me like I was there to ruin their day. Maybe I was. If something failed at sea, no one blamed the ocean. Halfway through, the captain tried his luck. We're on a tight schedule, he said. Think you can wrap this up quick? I looked him over once, unimpressed. Sure, I said. As long as you're fine with skipped safety checks. I'm not the one sailing this thing. He backed off immediately. By noon, I had finished the inspection, handed off the paperwork, and walked off the gangway with the same calm stride I always had. Another ship cleared, another crew that wouldn't end up in the water because someone wanted shortcuts. Back home, the garage lights flicked on, revealing my motorcycle mid-repair. Half the wiring had been bothering me all week. I set my tools out and got to work. Machines always listened. People didn't. Around 4, a couple friends dropped by. They claimed they came to hang out, but they always showed up when they smelled food. I cooked because watching them microwave things was painful. They argued about sports while I seared chicken and tossed vegetables in a pan. They acted like I'd performed magic. I let them enjoy the illusion. When they left, I turned to a wooden shelf I'd been building for the hallway. Clean cuts, tight joints, nothing complicated. Good work didn't need applause. It just needed to be done right. The door opened without knocking. Only one person treated my house that way. Giovanni stepped in, brushing cold air off his jacket. That shelf still standing? He asked. For now, I said. If it collapses, I'm blaming you. He snorted and grabbed a level off the bench. We worked together the way we always did. Quick, quiet, and without unnecessary questions. Giovanni never hovered or corrected. He just helped. When the shelf was mounted, he dusted his hands off. Ran into your mother earlier, he said. She's excited about your brother again. Apparently, he closed some big deal. I nodded once. Someone warned the world. He might try accepting a normal compliment next. Giovanni chuckled. She nearly floated away talking about him. Figures, I said. If she praises him any harder, he'll file it as income. He laughed louder at that. My phone buzzed on the workbench. Family group chat. I felt Giovanni glance at it. You gonna check that? He asked. I'll regret it either way, I said, picking it up. Nikolai had typed first. Closed another contract today. Team said they've never seen numbers handled this smoothly. Daniela followed. So proud of you, sweetheart, Coulter added. That's how it's done. I locked the screen and set the phone face down. Giovanni raised an eyebrow. No reply? I stared at the screen long enough to feel the old reflex wake up. I replied, I said. Silence carried the point. Giovanni's look said he understood what it cost. After he left, I cleaned the garage, checked the motorcycle, and looked at the mounted shelf one more time. Everything sat where it needed to. Everything worked because I made sure it did. The docs would throw something else at me the next morning. They always did. And I'd handle it the same way I handled everything. Steady, sharp, and without bending for anyone who didn't earn it. I called Daniela 3 days before Christmas, mostly out of habit. I already had a feeling how it would go, but I wasn't the type to avoid a conversation just because it might get stupid. She answered on the second ring. Romeo, she said, too bright, like she was reading from a script. About Christmas. I leaned against the counter. Yeah. What time should we be there? There was a pause long enough for me to picture her chewing her lip. Maybe, don't come this year. Straight to it. My stomach tightened like it still hadn't learned they'd never pick me. I kept my voice level anyway. Habit. Before I could say anything, Coulter cut in from the background, loud enough to make sure I heard him. Let's keep it simple this time. I raised an eyebrow even though no one could see it. Simple meaning what? Fewer chairs? Less oxygen? Daniela stumbled over her words. No, sweetheart, it's just Nikolai and Lucille are hosting, and there'll be guests you don't know, and it might be complicated. Complicated, I repeated. Right. That's when Nikolai grabbed the phone. I could hear the smirk in his voice before he spoke. Yeah, we don't want you to kill the vibes. I let a beat pass, then stopped talking. Problem solved. He bristled, could practically hear his jaw clench, but he didn't get a comeback out before I said, Merry Christmas, and ended the call. A minute later, my phone buzzed again. Family group chat. I opened it because I wasn't scared of words on a screen. Nikolai. Good. No awkward this year. I set the phone down and walked upstairs where my girlfriend Lilith was wrapping a gift for Giovanni. She looked up when I entered. That was your family, she said. Not a question. They voted me off the island, I said. You still want to spend Christmas with me? Or should I get in line at a shelter? She tied the ribbon and stood. You're cooking breakfast, she said. That's all I need. We spent Christmas morning exactly how I preferred it. I made coffee and pancakes. She stole half my berries, and we exchanged gifts on the couch while the rain tapped against the windows. No drama, no posturing, no pretending. Giovanni called around noon. I figured they banned you, he said immediately. Congratulations, I told him. You win the prize for most accurate guess. He snorted. You want company, or you two doing your own thing? We're good, I said. Enjoy your day, old man. Tell Lilith I said hi, he replied, and hung up without any attempt to dig for details. That was why I kept him close. He actually respected boundaries. Lilith and I spent the rest of the day watching movies, cooking dinner, and ignoring every call or message from numbers that looked like they came from relatives. I didn't open anything. If someone wanted to complain, they could rehearse their lines first. The morning after Christmas, my phone pinged again. Daniela, this time directly. Daniela, dinner at our place. Be there at 6. Not a question, not an invite. A command. Like I was supposed to snap to attention. I typed back one word. Romeo? No. I set the phone down and went back to sanding a piece of wood for another shelf. A minute later, it buzzed again, but I didn't bother checking. Whatever it was would be predictable. Later that afternoon, Giovanni called again, this time with a sigh in his voice. Your mother reached out, he said. She's telling relatives you're holding a grudge. Let them believe whatever helps them sleep, I said. You're not angry? He asked, more curious than concerned. Nothing to be angry about, I said. They made a decision. I made one back. Giovanni hummed his approval. All right then, just checking. We hung up, and I went back to my workbench. Lilith walked in a moment later, leaned against the doorframe and asked, Everything handled? Handled enough, I said. She nodded once and came over to stand beside me, looking over the freshly sanded wood. She didn't ask for a rundown of the drama, didn't tell me how I should feel, didn't push. She just stayed beside me like that was where she belonged. That was enough. By the end of the day, the piece I was working on was finished, the house was quiet, and the holiday nonsense had already faded in the rear view. They had drawn their line. I simply honored it. If they wanted to turn me into the villain at family gatherings, they were welcome to the role play. I wasn't attending the performance anyway. Winter kept moving after that. January came in wet and gray, and the silence stayed exactly the way I'd built it, on purpose. By the time early spring showed up, my family's noise had faded into background static. Lilith and I didn't talk about them much, because we didn't need to. I'd seen Lilith handle pressure plenty of times, but watching her at work was a different level. The psychiatric clinic her family owned in Tacoma ran like a machine, and she was the part that kept everything from jamming. When she walked through the hall, staff straightened up without thinking. Nurses asked quick questions. She answered without slowing her stride. Direct, calm, no wasted motions. A patient raised his voice in one of the consult rooms as I walked past on my way to meet her for lunch. Before I could step in, she already had it handled. She stood near the doorway, posture relaxed but firm. Mr. Haynes, she said, voice steady. You're frustrated, not dangerous. Take a seat. We'll talk about the real problem. He sat, just like that. When she stepped out a few minutes later, she gave me a small nod, like nothing unusual happened. Ready? She asked. Always, I said. We grabbed lunch at a spot near the water. I liked the place, and she liked it because they made decent tea. A couple of my friends arrived halfway through, people who had known me long enough to skip pleasantries. My buddy Aaron looked Lilith over and said, "So you're the famous doctor." Lilith corrected him without blinking. Psychiatrist. The word doctor is too vague. Everyone has one these days. Aaron laughed. You're fun. She didn't try to charm anyone. She didn't change her tone to make herself more likable. She just stayed exactly who she was, and somehow that made everyone lean in instead of pull back. Later, at a friend's get-together, one guy who'd had too much energy and not enough manners tried to impress her with his understanding of psychology. He cornered her with a drink in hand and said, I read online that psychiatry is 90% guessing. Must be an easy job. Lilith didn't flinch. She tilted her head slightly. If guessing worked, she said, your conversation skills would be better. He shut up so fast I nearly applauded. She walked back to me like nothing happened. You make friends wherever you go, I said. He'll be fine, she replied. Ego injuries are treatable. Being around her felt clean. No drama, no pretension, no noise. Just two people who understood how to move through a room without tripping over each other. I didn't plan my proposal. There was no grand moment waiting in the wings. It happened on a Saturday morning while we were making breakfast together. She was at the counter slicing fruit, humming something I couldn't place. I set the pan down, wiped my hands, and said, Lilith. She looked up immediately. What's wrong? Nothing, I said. Marry me. Straightforward. No speech, no warm-up. She didn't blink. Yes, that was it. No gasp, no shaky hands, no theatrics. She said it the same way she handled everything. Direct, certain, not looking for permission from anyone. She finished slicing the fruit and handed me a piece. Pressure wasn't her style. Confidence was. After breakfast, we sat at the table and opened my laptop. I expected her to ask about who we were inviting, how many guests we wanted, how to handle family. She didn't bring up any of it. She pulled up venue options, asked me what months I preferred, and made notes. Not one word about Daniela, Coulter, or Nikolai. Not one question about whether they'd be part of anything. She didn't ask why I didn't mention them either. I watched her scroll through a list of venues, calmly evaluating each one like she was picking out office furniture. That was when I understood the truth as clearly as if she'd spoken it. She wasn't planning a wedding around people who didn't want me around. She was planning one around us. I chose a smaller venue overlooking the Sound. She agreed instantly. She chose a simple date in early summer, far enough from Christmas for the dust to settle, close enough that we wouldn't give anyone time to interfere. I agreed instantly. Every decision came fast because neither of us was thinking about anyone beyond the two of us. When we finished booking the basics, she closed the laptop and said, Your uncle should come. Giovanni. He'll enjoy it. I smirked. He'll cry. Good, she said. Someone should. We didn't discuss the rest of my family because there was nothing to discuss. The absence of their names said more than any argument ever could. She didn't push me to explain anything. I didn't need to. That night we sat on the couch, her legs over mine, the room quiet except for the hum of the heater. She leaned her head against my shoulder and said, Tell me where you want the honeymoon. I'll book it. That was how we planned everything. Straight lines, no hesitation, no ghosts from other people's expectations floating between us. Lilith didn't just fit my world. She sharpened it, made it cleaner. And she did it without asking me to change anything about who I was or what I chose to keep out. We didn't say it out loud, but we both already knew. That wedding wasn't going to have a single Luciano besides Giovanni. Planning didn't take long. We kept it small, kept it clean, and let the months roll forward without inviting anyone else's opinions into it. By early summer, everything was booked. The venue sat on a rise above the Sound, quiet, open, the kind of place where the wind did most of the talking. Lilith walked the grounds with me the evening before, checking the space like she was running a final assessment. She didn't fuss. She didn't second-guess anything. When she stopped near the overlook, she said, This spot is good. That was enough. On the morning of the wedding, the air was clear, surprisingly warm for the season. The chairs were set in simple rows, the arch wrapped with white flowers. No overdone decorations, no choreographed display. Just clean lines and the view across the water. Lilith got ready in a small room near the garden. When she stepped out in her dress, simple, fitted, the kind that didn't need sparkle to make people stare, her mother teared up instantly. Her father shook my hand harder than usual. That was their style. No big speeches, just solid acknowledgement. Giovanni arrived early, wearing a suit that looked like he ironed it himself. He clapped me on the back. You sure look like you know what you're doing, he said. Acting, I replied. He smirked. Well, you're convincing. He didn't mention Daniela. He didn't ask about Coulter or Nikolai. His silence told me he already knew exactly how things stood, and approved. The guests took their seats. 40 people at most. Lilith's colleagues, her closest friends, her family, a few of mine, people who had shown up for me consistently over the years. No empty chairs waiting for ghosts. When the violin began, I moved into place at the front. The aisle wasn't long, but Lilith took her time walking it. Good. Let people stare. She was worth looking at. She stopped in front of me with that small, contained smile she always wore when she was actually happy. You ready? She asked quietly. Yeah, I said. Let's get it done. The efficient kept it efficient. Short reading, simple vows. Lilith spoke hers like she was making a promise she'd already decided on a long time ago. When it was my turn, I kept mine clean and steady. I choose you, I said. Every day. Till death do us part. Lilith's fingers tightened around mine. That was her version of tearing up. When the officiant announced us married, Lilith didn't go for some dramatic kiss. She leaned in, kissed me like we still had other things to do later, and let out the smallest breath, one I felt more than heard. The reception was exactly how a reception should be. Relaxed, genuine. Lilith's mother hugged her every 10 minutes. Her father told me twice that he liked my confidence. Giovanni avoided dancing by pretending his knee hurt, but everyone knew he just hated choreography. No drama, no interruptions, no sudden appearances from people who wanted credit for raising me. The day moved smoothly from one moment to the next, like it belonged to us and no one else. When we left, the sun was going down, lighting the water gold. Lilith tucked her hand into mine and said, That went better than most therapy sessions. Lower stakes, I said. She laughed lightly and leaned against my shoulder as we walked to the car. 3 days passed before either of us posted anything. Lilith uploaded 2 photos, one of us walking back up the aisle, one from the reception where I was looking at her like she'd asked me a question. No captions. I posted my own 2 pictures that evening. Enough to acknowledge the moment, not enough to feed anyone's curiosity. The posts sat quietly for a few days. Then the screenshots started traveling. Family networks, cousins, group chats, the usual pipeline of people who needed an audience. That was when the phone started buzzing. Not with congratulations, with recognition. Someone, probably a cousin, sent screenshots to Daniela. She and Coulter must have gone through every post 3 times, trying to figure out how a wedding happened without their approval, without their chairs, without their scripted smiles in the background. I didn't check their messages. I didn't need to. I could already hear the outrage forming. While they were spiraling, Lucille got involved immediately. She grabbed one of Lilith's photos, specifically the aisle one, and posted it inside a local social chat full of her friends, the kind of place where people called gossip updates to feel productive. Her caption, "Some people really think they're important." Accurate, considering she had posted it. Lilith showed me the screenshot while we were cleaning the kitchen. I shook my head once. She must be bored. Chronically, Lilith said. 10 minutes later, Lilith's phone buzzed again. A message request. Lucille, we should do lunch sometime. I love smart women. You'd be such a fun addition to our circle. Lilith typed back while standing at the counter. Thank you. My schedule is full. Polite. Final. Professional. Lucille immediately sent another message. Oh, I didn't realize therapists were so busy. Must be cute for you. Lilith read it once. She didn't correct the word. Not worth the oxygen. She locked her phone. She's emotional, she said calmly. That's a polite word for it, I said. She'll escalate, Lilith added, like she was calling the weather. Let her. Lucille didn't like being dismissed. 2 more passive-aggressive posts appeared online within an hour. All vague, all pointed, all written for an audience that loved drama as long as it stayed indirect. Lilith ignored every one of them. I didn't waste a breath acknowledging any of it. The wedding had been done our way. Quiet, selective, free from people who only cared about seating charts and appearances. And now, for the first time, my family understood that they hadn't been overlooked. They'd been left out. By evening, my phone started vibrating like someone was trying to shake the battery loose. First, Daniela called. Then she called again. Then Coulter tried. Then they both switched to messages. Long, broken paragraphs, guilt packed between every line. Why would you do something like this without telling us? You embarrassed the entire family. This is not how adults behave. We are your parents. We deserve to be there. I let the flood roll in until the notifications stacked over each other. Finally, I answered one call just to stop the noise. Daniela's voice shot out immediately. How could you get married without inviting us? She demanded. Do you know how this makes us look? I didn't think you cared how I looked, I said. So I returned the favor. Coulter took the phone. Romeo, this is petty. You blindsided us. You told me not to come to Christmas, I reminded him. A wedding felt more complicated than dinner. Wouldn't want to make things awkward. That shut him up for 2 seconds. Daniela jumped back in. We didn't mean it like that. You should have still told us. We're your family. You made decisions, I said. I made mine. She inhaled sharply, an offended gasp she'd perfected after years of practice. Your brother is devastated. He said he feels betrayed. And Lucille. Lucille made a group post about my marriage, I said. She'll survive. Daniela's voice rose. Romeo, you are being cruel. I hung up. Not angrily, just efficiently. There was nothing else worth hearing. 10 minutes passed. Enough time for them to move from shock to investigation. Then it happened. The moment I expected, but still found pathetic. The call stopped. The messages slowed. And a new one showed up. Who is Lilith's father? There it was. I didn't answer, but I didn't have to. Daniela tried next. Daniela, does her family own something? We heard they run clinics? Psychiatric? Is that true? Why didn't you say anything? The tone was completely different. Suddenly soft. Suddenly respectful. Suddenly curious about details they'd ignored for a year. I called them this time. Not because they deserved it, but because some things needed saying out loud. Daniela answered immediately. Honey, we didn't know her family was established. Right, I said. Funny how your tone switched the second you realized she wasn't average. That's not fair, she insisted. No, I said. What wasn't fair was you dropping me from Christmas because I didn't fit Nikolai's aesthetic. Coulter tried to salvage it. We're trying to understand. We deserve information. You deserve nothing, I said. Information is earned. So is respect. Silence. They didn't know what to do with a clean boundary. We just want to reconnect, Daniela said weakly. You didn't want to reconnect when you thought she was just another woman dating me, I said. You only care now because you went looking for leverage. That's not... I ended the call. Lilith was at the table reading a file when I walked back in. She glanced up, calm as ever. Shift in tone? She asked. They smelled money, I said. Ah. She returned to her notes like that, answered everything. Across town, Lucille was still running her own marathon. Another screenshot popped up in a mutual story. A vague jab about people acting above their station. Subtle as a brick. Lilith received 2 more messages from her. I didn't mean anything rude. You took it wrong. Then, before Lilith could reply, anyway, since you're married in, it'd be good for you to meet the right people. Connections matter. Lilith typed a reply without pausing. Appreciate the offer. I'm not available for social networking. Lucille answered instantly. I'm trying to be nice. Don't be difficult. Lilith locked her phone. She's confused, she said calmly. She thinks proximity is entitlement. Most of them do, I said. She went back to work, unbothered. Her ability to cut off nonsense cleanly was one of the many reasons she fit my world better than anyone I'd ever known. My own family wasn't nearly as composed. By the next morning, Daniela sent a paragraph about how family should stick together, followed immediately by a message asking for the names of Lilith's parents. Coulter tried to take the reasonable route. You're breaking your mother's heart. Just talk to us. We can fix this. I replied once. There's nothing to fix. He tried calling. I didn't answer. Nikolai attempted his own angle later that afternoon. You embarrassed us. People are asking questions. You should have told me if she came from money. That could have helped the family. I sent back, if that was what you wanted from my marriage, you were never owed information. He didn't reply. By evening, the house was quiet again. Lilith and I ate dinner. Giovanni texted a thumbs-up emoji, a real one this time, because he'd seen the online noise and figured I'd handled it the way he expected. I had. My family had shown me what they valued, and I'd responded in the only language they understood. Clear actions, short answers, closed doors. Their reaction didn't burn out. It escalated the way it always did, slow at first, then all at once, like they could pressure a boundary until it broke. Daniela and Coulter made their first move 2 mornings after their tone shift. I only found out because Lilith's clinic manager called her during breakfast. Lilith listened, expression flat, then put her phone on the table. Your parents showed up at the Tacoma office, she said. I set down my coffee. For what? A tour? They claimed they were nearby and wanted to say hi. Her tone didn't change, but her eyebrow did. They tried to walk past reception. I didn't need the rest, but she continued anyway. The staff asked them to leave. They refused, said they had a right to speak to me. Security escorted them out. Of course they did. The clinic issued a formal trespass notice. Good, I said. Today's theme is consequences. Lilith nodded once, pulled her tea closer, and went back to reviewing a case file like this was the least interesting thing happening in her world. She never fed drama. She let it starve. Meanwhile, my phone started vibrating like it was trying to escape. Daniela called first, then Coulter, then Daniela again. No voicemails. Of course not. Cowards hate receipts. I didn't answer. Their trespass notice had already given them all the conversation they needed. By noon, the next wave hit. Nikolai. He wasn't subtle about it. A mutual contact sent me a screenshot. Nikolai bragging during a work meeting that he had family ties to a psychiatric network and that he could open doors if people needed connections. He had listed Lilith's parents by name, like he'd grown up in their living room. I shook my head once and put the phone down. He didn't stop there. I found out the normal way. People forwarding things they didn't want attached to their names. A business owner sent me a screenshot of Nikolai's pitch. Then another one did. After that, a hospital board member forwarded the message with a single line. Is this your brother? Nikolai was calling himself part of the family, implying he could arrange introductions to Lilith's parents. Then he got bolder. He emailed one of the clinic administrators asking to schedule a chat about potential collaboration opportunities. The administrator forwarded the email to Lilith with one line. Is this guy okay? Lilith forwarded it to her parents. Her father called 20 minutes later. Your brother is confused, he said plainly. He's consistent, I corrected. We'll handle it. They did. Their attorney drafted a cease and desist letter so sharp it could have cut steel. The document spelled out every lie Nikolai had told, the legal risk he carried, and the consequences if he kept using the family name. It didn't just go to him. It went to the people he'd been pitching, copied cleanly, like a receipt. By the time he read it, his inbox was already filling with short replies and closed doors. Nikolai lasted 3 hours before he started melting down. He called Daniela first. She put him on speaker with Coulter. They all decided I was the villain. Nikolai, you ruined everything. You turned her family against me. No, buddy. You did that by pretending you were part of something you weren't even invited to observe. Daniela, Romeo, why would you let this happen? He looks terrible. People will talk. Coulter, you need to undo this. I didn't answer any of the calls. By the time the letter hit, they were leaving voicemails anyway. Still cowards, just louder. Listening wasn't required to know how the script went. Blame, denial, self-pity. When they couldn't get to me, they tried the next target. Giovanni. Daniela called him first. You're choosing him over us. She snapped loud enough for Giovanni to hold the phone away from his ear. I'm choosing sanity, he said. Try it sometime. Coulter interrupted in the background, demanding Giovanni talk sense into me. Giovanni hung up mid-sentence. But they didn't stop. Nikolai found Giovanni outside a hardware store 2 days later. Giovanni told me about it that evening while wiping grease from his hands in my workshop. He walked up like he wanted to negotiate a hostage situation, Giovanni said. Started with something about wanting peace in the family. Then he blamed you for the letter. What did you say? I asked. Giovanni smirked. I said if he kept using people's names without permission, the next letter would be thicker. Good. And then, Giovanni added, he asked if I could talk to you. Explain why you should step up and fix things. I laughed once. What did you do? I told him to leave before I forgot I was the reasonable one. That sounded exactly like Giovanni. After that encounter, they switched back to trying me directly. I read each message once, then blocked all 3 numbers. No dramatic speech. No warning. Just gone. Lilith watched me block them, then went back to her chart notes without comment. She never congratulated me for boundary setting, or asked whether I felt resolved. She respected my decisions like they were facts, not emotions. The next day, my phone was finally quiet. Peace wasn't something I asked for. It was something I enforced. Giovanni came by that evening with a box of screws and a bag of takeout. So, he said, setting everything down, you're officially unreachable. Best decision I've made all week, I said. He nodded. Then keep going. I did. Because the moment people showed you who they were, there was no reason to leave the door unlocked for them. Nikolai showed up 2 weeks after the cease and desist, pounding on my front door hard enough to rattle the frame. Lilith glanced up from the couch, unimpressed. She listened for a second. The uneven rhythm of the pounding, the single set of footsteps on the porch. He's alone, she said, still not looking toward the window. Desperation level, high. I opened the door enough to block the entrance with my body. Nikolai stood there breathing too fast, jaw clenched. eyes darting around like he'd built an entire speech in his head and forgot half of it. We need to talk, he said. Man to man. You had your chance to talk months ago, I said. And you used it to vote me off Christmas Island. Conversations closed. He pushed forward a step. I didn't move. He hit my chest with the edge of his shoulder and bounced back like he'd rammed a wall. You think you're better than us now? He snapped. No, I said. I think I'm separate. There's a difference. He scoffed and shoved a hand through his hair. You ruined everything, Romeo. You think I wanted that letter? You think I wanted people questioning me? That's on you? You poisoned them against me. I didn't have to, I said. You talked yourself into that mess. That family name could have opened doors for me, he barked. But you tried stealing connections from people you've never met, I cut in. If you weren't my brother, that'd be career-ending stupidity. Actually, it still is. His face twisted ugly. You think you're untouchable because you married into money? You think no one can do anything to you? I tilted my head. Are you threatening me? Or is this another seminar on your victimhood? Nikolai stepped forward again, fists tightening. Don't test me. I can make problems. You have no idea who... One more step, I said quietly, and I'll have the cops escort you out the same way the clinic escorted Daniela and Coulter. I don't bluff. That landed. His shoulders jerked like someone had yanked a wire inside him. You're unbelievable, he said. You're choosing her family over your own. No, I replied. I'm choosing the people who don't lie, trespass, or weaponize my name. You're not on the list. He stared at me for several seconds, mouth opening and closing like he wanted one last jab, but couldn't decide which one might hurt. Nothing came out. He stepped back, still glaring. This isn't over, he said. It is, I said. You just don't like the ending. I closed the door in his face. He didn't knock again. 3 days later, Daniela and Coulter tried their own stunt. They didn't need my number to find me. They just needed one well-meaning person with a big mouth and a weak definition of privacy. Lilith and I were leaving a restaurant in Tacoma, one of the rare places she liked because they didn't try to make their menus inspirational quotes. We stepped out onto the walkway, and there they were, standing too close to the entrance, pretending it was coincidence. Daniela plastered on a smile that didn't reach any real muscle in her face. Romeo! Lilith! What a surprise! Lilith stood slightly behind me, arms crossed, watching the whole display like it was a behavioral experiment. Coulter stepped forward, voice booming. We were just telling our friends inside how proud we are of you two. Newlyweds. Such an exciting time. And they looked around to see if anyone nearby heard them. They wanted an audience. Typical. I didn't give them one. You don't get to pretend, I said. Save it for people who didn't see your holiday performance. Daniela blinked rapidly. Sweetheart, you're misunderstanding. You told me not to come to Christmas, I said plainly. Now you're waving to strangers like you raised me from a Hallmark script. Pick a version and stick to it. Her smile slipped. Coulter tried stepping in again. We're trying to move forward. With what? I asked. You didn't show up to my life when it mattered. You showed up in a parking lot when it was convenient. Daniela's voice cracked into a whine. Romeo, stop making us look bad. I'm not making you look bad, I said. You did that work yourselves. A couple walking by slowed down, clearly hearing the tone. Coulter stiffened, realizing they'd lost control of the narrative. I took Lilith's hand. We're done here. Lilith nodded once and we walked past them. Daniela called after us once. My name stretched out like a plea. I didn't turn around. We reached the car. Lilith folded into the passenger seat calmly. That was concise, she said. They prefer concise, I replied. She buckled her seatbelt. They'll try again. Not with me. She didn't argue. That weekend, Giovanni came over carrying 2 grocery bags like he owned the driveway. He walked straight into the kitchen, unloaded pasta, tomatoes, garlic, and bread, like he knew exactly what he was doing. You're cooking, he announced. I'll supervise. I'm pretty sure it's usually the other way around, I said. Not when family's involved, he countered. Lilith set plates on the table. Which family? She asked. Giovanni smirked. The only one that knows how to use a doorbell. I cooked. Lilith passed ingredients. Giovanni sampled everything before it was fully ready, claiming he was testing for poison. The house filled with warm steam, the clatter of dishes, and the low hum of normal conversation, something my parents had never mastered. When we sat down to eat, Giovanni lifted his glass of water. To peace, he said. Lilith added, to earned peace. They clinked their glasses lightly. I tapped mine against theirs. Nothing dramatic, just a simple gesture that said more than any speech would have. No one said a single thing about Daniela, Coulter, or Nikolai. No one needed to. Actions had already closed the door. And the three of us, me, Lilith, and Giovanni, ate together like people who understood the difference between family you're born into and family you actually choose. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.